Alright, welcome to my Survivor 48 power rankings after episode 1. This is my first ever power rankings, so I'm not going to have any preseason power rankings. I'm just going to go off episode 1. And how my power rankings work, it's just going to be based off how much content the player got, how much strategic impact each player had, and like how much I think they're like within like a majority group, and how much, or the main component is how likely do I think they're going to win. And this is all just based off of episode 1, and I'm going to be doing this every single episode until obviously the finale, and then I'm going to look at all my power rankings after the whole season is done and see where I went right and where I went wrong. Coming in 17th place, I have Star, and the reason why Star is this low on my list because everyone was kind of put into a tribe or a group or a pairing on Star's tribe except for Star. There was no really positive content about Star. There was no backstory or anything that made it seem like Star would be some sort of big character or character to look out for this season. And kind of already got off on the wrong footing with their tribe because she was looking for idols. And no one has seemed to make a very deep connection with Star yet. And I feel like if their tribe is up for elimination, I feel like Star is definitely going to be one of the main contenders to be eliminated from their tribe. However, Star does seem to have some pretty good physical strength. And so maybe that can get Star past maybe 1 or 2 eliminations. But at this point, I just don't really see a chance of Star winning Survivor 48. Coming in at 16th place, we have Charity, and same thing with Star. Charity barely had any confessionals, and also the content that we got from Charity wasn't really much. It was just her talking about being a flight attendant, and all the stuff that was kind of proclaimed about Charity were clearly negative, and Charity's clearly been on the outs of this tribe so far, and there's already been a 4-person alliance kind of assembled, and Charity is going to be the main target of that group just because she tried to target Kyle towards Camilla. And again, I could see Charity be one of these sneaky players that does like play from the bottom very well this season, but however, I just don't really know how well Charity can play because Camilla and Kyle are already a pairing, and we don't really know the other dynamics with other characters on their tribe. Again, we just didn't really get that much from Charity, and none of it was positive in the slightest, so that's why Charity is ranked this low on the power rankings. In 15th place, we have Bianca, and my opinion on Bianca is she's barely better than the last two I'd previously talked about. And I mean, Bianca didn't really have any negative content per se, but she wasn't really included into the California Girls Alliance. And also, like, she just didn't really get that much content at all. No one really talked about Bianca. Bianca really just talked about her relationship with Thomas. And that's why she is above these other two characters, because of her alliance with Thomas. And I feel like, and in the preseason, Jeff Probst talked about how pairings was going to be a very big part of the season, and that could be one of the key pairs to the season. And the thing is, I don't see this tribe going to many tribal councils. I mean, this tribe is insanely strong. I don't know who assigned this tribe, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if this tribe didn't lose a challenge in the pre-merge. But as of right now, we've really gotten nothing from Bianca, so it might take a little more time for us to get more of a character out of Bianca. But again, I wouldn't be too surprised if Bianca got higher on the list and made it far in the game. I know this might seem low, but at number 14, we have Say. And Say, I feel like, is just playing way too hard and is being portrayed as way too much of a villain off the beginning. We've seen players play hard like Say in the past that do go far in the game, but their edit is way more heroic than Say. Say is getting portrayed as a complete villain this season, and it's not really looking great for Say. I feel like her idol might put her in a huge target because she has so much power this early on in the game. And I mean, Justin and Kevin were already considering voting her out, and this even, like, it's clear that Say is probably not in the power position of this tribe. It's probably more in the hands of Kevin and Justin. Her edit, I feel like, is just setting her up for failure. It feels like she is playing way too hard, way too fast, and I just don't really see a world where Say can win. I mean, like, her threat level is just so big already. She's just playing so hard, and I can't imagine anyone letting Say get to the end, or even, I'd be surprised if she made the merge. I mean, I don't have very high hopes for this tribe. They're pretty physically weaker than most of the other tribes, and also clearly aren't the best at puzzles either. At number 13, I have David, and again, David's content this episode just wasn't very good. I do understand he is in that 4-person alliance, but I mean, they just made him kind of look like an idiot this episode, I'm not going to lie, at least from my perspective. I mean, he just seems really full of himself and kind of unself-aware at some points. They're kind of just making him look like a doofus, like constantly talking about how charming he is. He just seems really full of himself, and it seems like that's going to bite him in the butt later in the game. also sharing the information about all the animals and letters, and then Charity kind of making a comment about David also isn't a great sign for David's gameplay this season. And also, he is just way too much of a physical threat. Even if he isn't even that good in the challenges, just looking at him, people are going to perceive him as a physical threat. I just can't see David making it that far into the game. He talks about his charm a lot, and it kind of just seems like he isn't a very charming person. I feel like a person that talks a lot about their charm isn't really that charming to begin with. And again, I think David does have it's a good sign he is in that 4-person alliance, but all of his confessionals just are not the best. They're pretty hard to watch at some points. Number 12, I have Chrissy, and Chrissy didn't really get a lot of content this episode, but again, that doesn't really scare me with Chrissy, I guess, because I mean, her tribe just didn't really have much to say except for Kyle and Camilla, because they were the ones Kyle was the one that lost the challenge, and then Camilla was the one trying to assemble the alliance, and Chrissy was a part of the alliance. But again, Chrissy didn't really need to do much this episode. I see Chrissy being placed a lot lower on some of the people's list, but again, I'm not really scared about Chrissy at all this season, at least for right now. I think she's in a fine spot strategically. I'm not even I think she's in a good spot strategically, and she just didn't really have to do that much this episode. We did get to learn a little bit about her backstory too. A lot of people are talking about the confessional count and talking about how scared they are because of that, but comparing her confessionals to like Bianca's confessionals, I feel like we're getting way more out of Chrissy than we are out of Bianca, so that's why I have Chrissy this higher on my list. I know she's not very high on the list because I mean we didn't really get that much, but I'm not too worried about Chrissy. At 11, we have Cedric, and we see Cedric in a good spot in the alliance. I feel like everyone seems to like Cedric to an extent. No one's ever said anything bad about Cedric. The only problem I have with Cedric is I feel like he might be too close to Say, because I think Say is going to get backstabbed or blindsided somewhat soon, and it seems like Justin and Kevin are a lot closer to each other than they are to Cedric, and I think Cedric can make the merge. I feel like Cedric, I don't know. I just don't really know how I feel about Cedric right now because he wasn't the majority vote, but he wasn't really in the decision-making part of it because he wasn't in the split between Kevin and Justin, and we don't really get to see Cedric interact with anyone else besides Say. And Say, I just don't really have high hopes for, so I'm kind of grouping Cedric within that. And Cedric just doesn't really strike me as someone that is going to be insanely strategical this season, but I hope I'm wrong, and I hope Cedric is a big character because I do like Cedric. At number 10, I have Kyle, and Kyle does get a pretty big role this episode, but I feel like that's mainly because he had to get a big role. I mean, Camilla was the one kind of giving him that big role, and plus the challenge loss. I mean, I do really like Kyle. I think Kyle actually does have a lot of potential this season, but it feels like a lot of his strategic, content, you could say, was mostly from Camilla, and we don't even really get to see Kevin's reaction or anything to see how he reacted when Charity was throwing his name out. It was just kind of Camilla telling people that they were throwing Kyle's name out. We're getting more of their reactions than Kyle's reaction itself, which is kind of a red flag. But again, I am kind of worried about Kyle just in case Camilla comes off too strong and Kyle's kind of grouped in with that. But other than that, I do really like Kyle's character this episode. I think Kyle could be potentially a big character down the road, but this episode just didn't really give us much strategic content from Kyle. It felt like mostly Camilla's content. At number 9, I have Mary, and yes, I do understand that Mary was not included in the last vote, which obviously isn't a very good sign for Mary's character. However, I do think her connection with Kevin is something that would not have been put in the show if it isn't going to be implicated into other episodes, unless Mary has a freak out at Kevin or is just trying to portray Kevin as a villain in future episodes. I don't really see that happening, and I feel like Kevin and Mary can reconnect on a future vote to get someone like Say or Cedric out of the game. Also, Mary did get some pretty good content this episode. We do get to know more about Mary, and Mary is honestly a great character. I feel like she's really funny, and I can't wait to see more of Mary. I really hope she's not an early boot. I honestly don't think she's going to be an early boot. I think there's a lot more of Mary that we are yet to see, and I feel like she could be a power player going into these next couple episodes, despite being left out of the first vote. We see a lot of great players get left out of the first couple votes and then just skyrocket into these huge players later into the season. At number 8, we have Mitch, and I know Mitch isn't technically into the 4-person alliance, but I don't really imagine Mitch ever being targeted by this group, at least first. I think they're definitely going to target Charity over Mitch. Mitch seems like a really likable, nice guy, and he seems pretty funny and endearing and charming, unlike David. Okay, I'm just kidding. No hate towards David, but Mitch, again, I feel like there's tons of positive content from Mitch this episode, and I feel like that's great for a future player within the game. I feel like a lot of people are going to root for Mitch. No one's really said anything bad about Mitch, unless in future episodes he might search for idols, but again, I don't really intend on that happening. Again, this is just hypothetical situations, but again, I think Mitch has done amazing this episode. I think besides not being in the 4-person alliance, his content was insanely positive. No one has said anything but goodness about Mitch. and I can definitely see him forming a bond with a character like David. At number 7, I have Justin, and I've seen Justin be low on a lot of people's rankings, and to be honest, I don't really understand that at all. I know Justin didn't really get the most confessionals per se, but he was in a very good spot this vote. You can see he has a good connection with Kevin, he has a good connection with Say, he has a lot of good connections on his tribe, and I just don't see Justin going home anytime soon. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people are like complaining about how he didn't really get that much confessionals, but I feel like he didn't really need to because the camp like gave him enough. I feel like he had enough interactions with other characters to give Justin enough content. I think Justin is a power player on his tribe that's kind of underlooked. He kind of reminds me of Genevieve from season 47. Genevieve had a lot of connections with other characters in the beginning, but didn't really get shown that much because she didn't really need to. And I feel like Justin could definitely be that person because he does have a lot of information. Say trusts him a lot. Kevin trusts him a lot, and he can go either side. I feel like if Kevin and Mary are on one side, Sanchez on the other side, I feel like he could be in perfect position for a middle vote. And yes, we don't get a huge perspective from Justin for this decision, which could be a like slightly red flag, but I do intend on it being a bigger part of next episode. And to be honest, I will be self-aware. This might just be my Justin bias because I do really like Justin. He is my preseason winner pick. But again, that's my reasoning for having belief in Justin. At number 6, I have Shaheen, and I think Shaheen is in a great strategical position. However, we just don't really get to see that much interaction with him and other characters. We don't really get to see a huge bond with him and other characters. We do get to see him and Thomas interact a bit, and that could be a potential pairing in the future. However, I just don't really see him being at the number 1 or the top of the alliance. At least in this episode, I do have a lot of hope for Shaheen. But again, we do get a good amount of Shaheen content this episode in a positive light, and I could definitely see Shaheen being a power player in the next couple episodes. But again, I just don't really know how much Shaheen content we're going to get from a tribe that's probably not going to lose an immunity challenge. At number 5, I have Joe, and I know a lot of people have Joe at like their 1 or their 2, but I feel like the scene that stuck out to me a lot was him talking about when he was with Eva, and he was saying that he would sacrifice his game for her, and he has her no matter what. I feel like that's definitely gonna bite him in the butt later down this season. I think it could be before that, before fire making, after fire making. It's gonna be somewhere around there. I do think Joe can make it far if he isn't perceived as this huge threat, which again would be kind of hard not to see him as a huge threat. But again, I feel like that scene is one of those scenes that's going to bite someone in the butt. We see a lot of those scenes, especially in the new era, be the downfall of some other players, especially when it's in episode 1 because they try to put it as an Easter egg. And again, I don't know, I think Joe is going to go really far this season. I just don't really see him winning. I feel like he would put Eva ahead of himself, and I feel like he'd rather have Eva win than himself because he just does seem like that sort of like stand-up sort of guy. At number 4, I have Camilla, and I think Camilla is a very fun character this season. I feel like the difference between her and Say, I think both of them played kind of similarly, but I feel like there's different like factors with it, because I feel like Say was way too quick to make alliances, but I feel like Camilla waited for the perfect time for someone to say something to use that against them. But I do think both of them are playing very, very hard. I just think Camilla's playing hardness is being portrayed a lot better than Say's is, and I cannot wait for Camilla more this season because I feel like she's going to be a very fun character that is playing hard. And I do really like a lot of the women characters that play hard, especially in the new era, have been some of my favorite characters. I mean, they're so entertaining to watch. I could see her being like a Shan or a Genevieve or someone like that, which are some of my favorite all-time characters from Survivor in general, and I really can't wait to see Camilla more. It's might be my Camilla bias coming in, why she's this high, but I can't wait for her to get more content. I feel like Camilla had a really good episode this episode. And no one even questioned her either. That's another thing. No one was saying anything bad about Camilla in confessionals either. Everyone just seemed to believe Camilla. I mean, Camilla was telling the truth, but again, everyone seemed to be on Camilla's side. At number 3, I have Kevin, and Kevin was definitely one of the main focal points this episode, probably besides Say. I mean, obviously the shoulder injury happened, but he was in a very strategically good spot. I think out of anyone on the Green Tribe, he's definitely in the best strategic position. And however, though, I feel like Green Tribe is not on a very good trajectory, but I feel like if he gets past the Green Tribe, if there's only 3 or 2 of them left, I feel like those characters that are on really little tribes and then go to the merge honestly do pretty well. And I feel like Kyle's the type of character that can play very well from the bottom. The thing is, I think Kyle can do very well in this game, but I just don't think he's going to be at the top for very long. And even though he was in such a power position and did backstab Mary, we already see him in this rootable figure. I mean, you want to root for Kyle, even though he is kind of playing a villainous in a certain way. If you look at it from a certain perspective, he did kind of play villainous because he was playing both sides and did have to lie to Mary. However, I think Kyle is portrayed in such a good light this episode. I feel like Kyle's going to be a very rootable character going forward. But I don't know. I just don't know if Kyle can win necessarily. There's not many characters this episode. And again, it's only episode 1, so it's like not that surprising. But Kyle, I think, is going to make a very deep run this season. Can he win? I don't know. It's going to be a huge question mark. But I think Kyle is in for a long haul this season. Coming in at number 2, we have Eva. I think Eva had great content this episode. Everyone seems to love her. She seems like a great person. She seems like a very hard worker. She has connections with Joe. The California Girls Alliance really likes her. She's in a good spot. And I feel like when you're in a dominating tribe and you go to the merge with that dominant tribe and you're on a good spot with that tribe, I feel like that's a huge green flag. And I think Eva can win any jury vote if she gets to the end. I think the main part of her getting to the end is like that's going to be the hardest part for her game, is to be able to get to the end. But I feel like if she has these shields like Joe and Shaheen, again, I mean, obviously she's not going to use Joe as a shield because she clearly trusts Joe and she wants to work with him really long. But again, I feel like people are going to target them before they target Eva, and they might underestimate her. But if Eva does get to the end, I don't see a shot where she doesn't win. And I feel like Eva has positioned herself strategically in a very, very good spot. Eva kind of strikes me as a Marianne character. I don't think they're playing strategically the same game. I think Eva's honestly playing a lot better than Marianne did in the early stages of the game. But I feel like people kind of underestimated them until it was too late, and they really popped off at the end, and both of them ultimately win. And I believe 100% deserved it. And I feel like Eva could definitely be one of those characters, and I feel like that could be setting up towards that. But for my number 1 spot, I have Thomas. I think Thomas has been amazing in the first episode. The fact we get a lot of Thomas content when we don't really need to get Thomas content, I feel like is a big sign that he is going to be a very strong player this season. Same thing with like Eva, when I'm saying people might underestimate her. I think people might underestimate Thomas too. I feel like Thomas would be the first one to flip on that alliance. I think Shaheen would flip too, but I don't think Joe and Eva would flip. And I feel like Thomas is a very strong player. He has this connection with Bianca. He seems like a very good social player, connecting with literally everyone on his tribe, and I feel like he connects with other tribes too. I think he's going to make it to the merge just based off of how strong his team is, and he's already in a good spot strategically. I have really high hopes for Thomas this season. I think Thomas is my winner. Thomas is definitely my winner pick as of right now, and I definitely see him going very far into the game, and I think he's just really smart. I think he's very socially smart, which is obviously the key to Survivor, and he is my winner pick because of his strong connections with other players. And yeah, that's just my power rankings for the episode 1 season 48 cast. If you have any opinions, comment them down below, and I'll be making a list as soon as episode 2 comes out of season 48. Anyways, see you in the next video.